A cowering Nicolas Cruz was ordered held without bail during his first court appearance on Thursday, where he was officially charged with 17 counts of premeditated murder. The 19-year-old who killed 17 and injured more than a dozen in a shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida on Wednesday did not speak in court today, other than to confirm his name with a polite "yes ma'am" to the judge. Mostly, he kept his gaze to the ground. He wore an orange jumpsuit, and had both his hands and ankles shackled. As he took the podium to speak to the judge over live-stream video from the Broward County Jail, a handful of sheriff's deputies and prison officials gathered around. Standing next to him was his female attorney, who comforted him by putting a hand around his shoulder. Prosecutors asked that Cruz be held without bond, and Cruz's attorney did not fight them on it. It's unclear when his next hearing will be, but he has been assigned a judge. A Broward government official has told DailyMail.com that Cruz is on suicide watch after threatening to kill himself. Cruz was arrested shortly after the shooting Valentine's Day afternoon, and was initially taken to the hospital to be treated for labored breathing. He was soon released to the police, who spent most of the night questioning Cruz, trying to make sense of the horrific school shooting, now the third deadliest in American history. The fact that it was the 30th mass shooting so far this year has spurred activists to call on Congress again to revamp the nation's gun control policies. President Trump, a staunch defender of the National Rifle Association, said at a press conference on Thursday that the real issue lawmakers need to tackle is mental health, not guns. Meanwhile, details are starting to emerge about the shooter, who recently was orphaned, stopped getting mental health treatment about a year ago, and even had ties to a white supremacist group. Students at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School painted the picture of a weird and disturbed teen who sold knives out of a lunchbox, bragged about killing animals, and was finally kicked out of school for fighting and carrying bullets in his backpack. An FBI official also said Thursday that they were warned, not once, but twice, about the shooter. One of the warnings came in September, from a bail bondsman in Mississippi who alerted the feds about an alarming online message Cruz wrote saying he was going to be a professional school shooter. Ben Bennett says he alerted the FBI to a comment shared by Cruz on one of his YouTube videos back in September. He says the FBI was quick to respond to the concerning statement, arriving at his office the very next day to find out if he knew anything about the young man. He didn't hear from the FBI again until after the shooting on Wednesday. At a press conference Thursday morning, an FBI official said they followed up on the report but were unable to further identify the person who made the comment. Broward County Mayor Beamfer also revealed that Cruz had been getting treatment at a mental health clinic for a while, but hadn't been back to the clinic in more than a year. It wasn't like there wasn't concern for him, Fur told CNN. We try to keep our eyes out on those kids who aren't connected. In this case we didn't find a way to connect with this kid. Authorities offered no immediate details about Cruz or his possible motive, except to say that he had been kicked out of the high school, Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, which has about 3,000 students. Officials wouldn't say why exactly Cruz had been expelled, but fellow students said it was because he got into a fight with his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend and because he was caught with bullets in his backpack. Authorities quickly started dissecting the shooter's social media accounts in a bid to piece together the motive. Sheriff Israel reported that some of things the shooter had been posting was very disturbing. In one Instagram post, Cruz posted a screen grab of Google search results for "What does Allahu Akbar mean?" Allahu Akbar means God is great in Arabic, and is something Islamist terrorists often shout before attacks. He captioned the photo, "Well, at least we know what it means when a Santurka, a racial expletive for an Arab person, says Allahu Akbar," laughing face emojis. ABC News reported Thursday that Cruz appeared to have ties to a white nationalist group called the Republic of Florida. A spokesman for the group confirmed Cruz was a member. The group describes itself as a white civil rights organization fighting for white identitarian politics and seeks to create a white ethno-state in Florida. The leader of the group, Jordan Jareb, told the Anti-Defamation League that Cruz was brought into the group by another member and had participated in training exercises with the group. Jareb said that Cruz was not ordered to pull off the shooting and that they are not a terrorist organization. He added to ABC News that he had not seen Cruz in some time, but after the shooting on Wednesday he knew he would be getting this call. He also said he had trouble with a girl and he believed the timing of the attack, carried out on Valentine's Day, wasn't a coincidence. Cruz suffered a major blow in November when his adoptive mother Linda Cruz, 68, died of pneumonia. Linda was apparently the only person Cruz was close with. Linda was very close to them, her sister-in-law Barbara Kumbatovic told The Washington Post. She put a lot of time and effort into those boys, trying to give them a good life and upbringing. Linda and her husband, who died of a heart attack several years ago, adopted Cruz and his biological brother, Zachary, after the couple moved from Long Island in New York to Broward County. Cruz was an infant when he was adopted. It's unclear if he was adopted from the U.S. or abroad. Adopted children from abroad sometimes have issues adjusting due to neglect in their orphanages, especially children from Russia. While his brother was quiet and liked to stay indoors, Cruz constantly got into trouble and appeared to have emotional issues. Linda dealt with it like most parents did. She was probably too good to him, Kumbatovic said. She was a lovely woman. She was a hard-working woman. She made a beautiful home for them. She put a lot of effort and time into their schooling, their recreation, whatever they needed. She was a good parent. And she went over and above because she needed to compensate for being a single parent. She added, "I don't think it had anything to do with his upbringing. It could have been the loss of his mom. I don't know." Longtime Cruz family neighbors Malcolm and Christine Roxborough told the Sun-Sentinel that the police came to the boy's house many times, as he used to get in trouble and harass people. He didn't have an arrest record though. Malcolm Roxborough said a neighbor across the street kept pigs, and Nicholas Cruz targeted the family. He didn't like the pigs and didn't like the neighbors, so he sent over his dog over there to try to attack them, Roxborough said. Another neighbor, Shelby Speno, said she once witnessed Cruz shooting at chickens owned by another resident. Roxborough's wife said she once caught Cruz peeking in her window. "I said, 'What are you doing here?' He said he was looking for golf balls. I said, 'This isn't the golf course,' she said." And, the couple said, when the boy didn't want to go to school, he would bang his head against a cement wall. They were scared of him. "He could have killed any of us," Christine Roxborough said. After their mother's death, the boys were left in the care of a family friend, but Cruz didn't stay there very long. Unhappy there, Cruz asked to move in with a friend at a mobile home park in northwest Broward. The friend's family agreed and Cruz moved into his own room in the home around Thanksgiving. The family brought him into their home, the family's attorney, Jim Lewis, said. They got him a job at a local dollar store. They didn't see anything that would suggest any violence. He was depressed, maybe a little quirky. But they never saw anything violent. He was just a little depressed and seemed to be working through it. Cruz brought his AR-15 rifle with him to the family's home, where it was kept in a locked cabinet that the teen had a key to. Sources told CNN that the gunman purchased the rifle in the past year and passed a required background check to obtain it. Two federal law enforcement officials said the Smith & Wesson M&P rifle was purchased legally at Sunrise Tactical Supply in Coral Springs, Florida. Federal law allows people 18 and over to legally purchase long guns. At 21, people can legally buy handguns from a licensed dealer. While living with the family, Lewis started going to a school for at-risk youth. Usually every morning, the father of the family would drive Cruz to school, but on Wednesday he overslept and then gave a cryptic reason why. He said, "It's Valentine's Day and I don't go to school on Valentine's Day," Lewis said. Lewis said the family is devastated and didn't see this coming. The family's son was a junior at the school and was there when the shooting happened. Lewis said the family is cooperating and no one there is suspected of wrongdoing, he added. The family's cream-colored home was empty Thursday morning, but in the backyard a bullet-riddled Bud Light can was stuck on a twig of an avocado tree overlooking a creek. A paper plate, apparently a shooting target, was on another tree. Few people on the Lantana Cascades estate speak English. One neighbor who would not give his name said he only met Cruz once when the people in the house introduced him. He seemed like a nice kid, but it was only the once, the elderly man said. Then he was gone. I never saw him again. The backyard of the home on Easter Key Way is littered with garden furniture and toys. Eerily, a Hot Wheels toy in a container is still beeping. A tan Kia Soul stands in the driveway. Another neighbor, whose house on a neighboring street overlooks the home where Cruz had been staying, described Wednesday night on Lantana Cascades as a madhouse. Dozens of police came. It was shortly after 5 p.m. They taped 2 whole streets off and made those nearest the house get out. I stayed though. I saw them go in and bring a lot of stuff out, but it was dark so I couldn't see what. Students called Cruz weird and a loner. Even those who'd been friendly with him said they hadn't seen him in more than a year since his expulsion. Dakota Muchler, 17, recalled Cruz posting on Instagram about killing animals and said he had talked about doing target practice in his backyard with a pellet gun. He said students weren't surprised officials had identified Cruz as the shooter. I think everyone had in their minds if anybody was going to do it, it was going to be him. Victoria Olvera, a 17-year-old junior at the school, said Cruz was expelled last school year because he got into a fight with his ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend. She said he had been abusive to his girlfriend. Another student said that part of the reason Cruz was expelled was that he was caught carrying bullets in his backpack. Matthew Walker, a 17-year-old student at the school, told WARA TV that all his classmates knew it was going to be him. "A lot of people were saying it was going to be him," he said. "A lot of kids threw jokes around saying that he was going to be the one to shoot up the school. It turns out that everyone predicted it. That's crazy. He was going class to class just shooting at random kids," he said. "Everything he posts, on social media, is about weapons. It's sick." One teacher said he had been identified as a potential threat to his classmates last year. Math teacher Jim Gower, who taught Cruz last year, told the Miami Herald, "We were told last year that he wasn't allowed on campus with a backpack on him. There were problems with him last year threatening students and I guess he was asked to leave campus." Another student took to social media claiming Cruz had mental health issues that were ignored by all the adults. "He literally had an Instagram where he posted pictures of animals he killed gruesomely and he physically assaulted one of my friends once," the student added. Another student, who was not identified, but claims to know Cruz, told WSVN he was obsessed with guns and showed him pictures of them on his phone. "He's been a troubled kid and he's always had a certain amount of issues going on. He shot guns because he felt it gave him, I guess, an exhilarating feeling." He added that Cruz made him nervous. "I stayed clear of him most of the time. My time in alternate school, I did not want to be with him at all because I didn't want to cause any conflict with him because of the impression he gave off. I can't say I was shocked. From past experiences, he seemed like the kind of kid who would do something like this," Charo said. "He used to tell me he would shoot rats with his BB gun and he wanted this kind of gun, and how he liked to always shoot for practice," Charo added. One student added that Cruz started selling knives out of a lunchbox when he started high school. But Broward County School District Superintendent Robert Runcie said he did not know of any threats posed by Cruz to the school. "Typically you see in these situations that there potentially could have been signs out there," Runcie said. "I would be speculating at this point if there were, but we didn't have any warnings. There weren't any phone calls or threats that we know of that were made." As a high school freshman, Cruz was part of the U.S. military-sponsored Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps program at the school. President Trump tweeted Thursday morning, saying there were signs that the shooter was mentally disturbed. He also entreated Americans to report similar people to the authorities. "So many signs that the Florida shooter was mentally disturbed, even expelled from school for bad and erratic behavior. Neighbors and classmates knew he was such a big problem. Must always report such instances to authorities, again and again," he wrote. Trump has cited mental health before as a cause for mass shootings, dismissing questions about gun control. Trump spoke later in the morning about the shooting at a press conference from the White House. Taking up the now familiar ritual of public consolation after terrible violence, Trump spoke from the White House diplomatic room. In a slow, deliberate style, he sought to reassure a troubled nation as well as students' families and shooting survivors in Florida. "We are all joined together as one American family, and your suffering is our burden also," Trump said. "No child, no teacher, should ever be in danger in an American school." Trump, who owns a private club in Palm Beach, Florida about 40 miles from the town of Parkland, where the shooting happened, said Thursday he was making plans to visit the grieving community. He did not answer shouted questions about guns as he exited the room. Just before the shooting broke out at 2:25 p.m., some students thought they were having another fire drill. Such an exercise had forced them to leave their classrooms hours earlier. So when the alarm went off Wednesday afternoon shortly before they were to be dismissed, they once again filed out into the hallways. That's when police say Cruz, equipped with a gas mask, smoke grenades and multiple magazines of ammunition, opened fire with a semi-automatic weapon, killing 17 people and sending hundreds of students fleeing into the streets. It was the nation's deadliest school shooting since a gunman attacked an elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut, more than 5 years ago. "Our district is in a tremendous state of grief and sorrow," said Robert Runcie, superintendent of the school district in Parkland, about an hour's drive north of Miami. "It is a horrible day for us." Police arrived at the scene to find hundreds of students fleeing the school. They later learned the shooter had concealed himself in the crowd and was among those running off the campus. Investigators were able to identify him after trawling surveillance video. He was arrested about an hour after the shooting first broke out when police cornered him in a nearby neighborhood. He had multiple magazines of ammunition on him, authorities said. 17 people were killed and more than a dozen injured. "It's catastrophic. There really are no words," said Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel. A local politician told DailyMail.com that the high school has high-definition surveillance cameras that captured every single shot by Cruz and authorities are poring through them now. The cameras allegedly picked up Cruz walking across the empty parking lot toward the school carrying his rifle, as classes were in session. The two school resource officers, from the Broward County Sheriff's Office, are supposed to monitor the perimeter. DailyMail.com reached out to the sheriff's office for comment, but they did not respond. Frantic parents rushed to the school to find SWAT team members and ambulances surrounding the huge campus and emergency workers who appeared to be treating the wounded on sidewalks. Students who hadn't run began leaving in a single-file line with their hands over their heads as officers urged them to evacuate quickly. Hearing loud bangs as the shooter fired, many of the students inside hid under desks or in closets, and barricaded doors. "We were in the corner, away from the windows," said freshman Max Charles, who said he heard 5 gunshots. "The teacher locked the door and turned off the light. I thought maybe I could die or something." As he was leaving the building, he saw 4 dead students and 1 dead teacher. He said he was relieved when he finally found his mother. "I was happy that I was alive," Max said. "She was crying when she saw me." Noah Parnas, a 17-year-old junior, said he and the other students calmly went outside to their fire drill areas when he suddenly heard popping sounds. "We saw a bunch of teachers running down the stairway, and then everybody shifted and broke into a sprint," Parnas said. "I hopped a fence." Senator Bill Nelson told CNN that Cruz had pulled the fire alarm so the kids would come pouring out of the classrooms into the hall. "And there the carnage began," said Nelson, who said he was briefed by the FBI. The scene was reminiscent of the Newtown attack, which shocked even a country numbed by the regularity of school shootings. The December 14, 2012, assault at Sandy Hook Elementary School killed 26 people, 20 first graders and 6 staff members. The 20-year-old gunman, who also fatally shot his mother in her bed, then killed himself. Not long after Wednesday's attack in Florida, Michael Nembhard was sitting in his garage on a cul-de-sac when he saw a young man in a burgundy shirt walking down the street. In an instant, a police cruiser pulled up, and officers jumped out with guns drawn. "All I heard was 'Get on the ground. Get on the ground,'" Nembhard said. He said Cruz did as he was told. Florida Governor Rick Scott joined law enforcement agents near the site of the deadly school shooting on Wednesday night and offered his condolences to the victims' families and survivors. Scott said that he couldn't imagine what the families of the victims are going through. He also said he would be visiting hospitalized survivors. Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi said the state would cover funeral expenses for the victims and counseling for survivors. The school will be closed for the rest of the week. South Florida remained on edge on Thursday. Miami's main criminal courthouse building was put on lockdown after an unspecified threat was reported, Miami-Dade County's state attorney said on Twitter. Another Broward school briefly also went on lockdown after reports of a shooting, which turned out to be unfounded, local media reported. A law enforcement officer is assigned to every school in the Broward County District, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High Board member Donna Korn told a local newspaper. The sheriff's office also provides active shooter training and schools have a single point of entry, she said. "We have prepared the campuses, but sometimes people still find a way to let these horrific things happen," Korn said. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School is in Parkland, Florida's safest city last year. It's also a lucrative area to live because the schools are so good. The incident comes just a few weeks after a 15-year-old boy opened fire at his rural Kentucky high school, killing 2 and injuring more than 24 others. It's the 30th mass shooting of the year and the 3rd deadliest school shooting in American history, behind Sandy Hook and Virginia Tech.